Nice.
All right. Hello, everybody. It's just 3 o'clock here. And if I could get confirmation from someone in the group that you can hear and see me. Great. Thank you. For those of you who I haven't chatted with or haven't met yet, my name is Caitlin Schluter. I'm the Associate Program Director and Didactic Coordinator for our residency program here. Thank you all for joining today. It's really exciting to see so many folks on here. First year, second year, third year students, some DPT faculty, and folks interested in our program. We're happy to share some of this information with you. So before we dive into the program specifically, we're just going to take a couple brief minutes and have all of the faculty on call just introduce themselves, share a little bit about where they did their education, did their residency training, and what their role in our program is. So as I just described my role in the program, I'm the Associate Program Director and also help coordinate a lot of the didactic content in the program. I grew up right outside of San Francisco Bay Area, did my undergraduate education at UC Davis, played 4 years of Division I water polo there, and then did my DPT education out in North Carolina at Duke University, and then followed up with my sports residency training up at the other OSU. So I was out in Columbus, Ohio, and did my residency training out there. So I will kick it over now to Christina Gomez.
Hi, everybody. I am Christina Gomez. I'm the research coordinator for the residency program. I did my undergraduate education and DPT education at University of New Mexico, and then I moved to Texas and did residency education at Houston Methodist Sugar Land Hospital, fellowship education at Institute for Athlete Regeneration, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD through Texas Women's University. And here we go. Excited to meet you all. Thanks for being on here.
And Jenny?
Yeah, thank you guys for all joining us. My name's Jenny Neudorfer. I'm a physical therapist here, as well as the emergency management coordinator for, yeah.
My internet's not working, so
Oh.
I need to.
Sorry, guys. I do all the acute management content for our residency program. My background is I got my undergraduate degree at Oregon State in athletic training, went on to George Fox University for PT school, and then my residency was here at the SAM. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pass it over to Vienne, who just joined me.
Sorry, my internet cut out. But my name is Vienne. I did my DPT school at University of the Pacific, and then I did my residency over at Gunderson in Wisconsin. I did my Division I sports fellowship at Wake Forest University.
Sean?
Hello, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Sean. I'm a physical therapist here at the SAM. In the residency, I function as mentorship coordinator. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Arizona. I ran cross country and track for them, and did my DPT training at Northern Arizona University, and I did my residency at the University of Florida.
And Travis.
Hey gang, thanks for joining us. My name is Travis Overmeyer. I'm the residency director and the rehab supervisor here. I did my training at University of Montana, both undergrad and graduate school, and then did my sports residency at Ohio State. And then I worked at University of Wisconsin Sports Medicine for 5 or 6 years prior to moving here 6 years ago. Starting the residency, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for walking through that with us. I'm now going to kick it over to Travis Obermeyer, just to give a little bit more of a welcome and history of our residency program, and then we'll dive into some of the logistics and questions that you guys have for us.
All right, thanks, Caitlin. I might leave my video off just for the sake of streaming, or actually I can try it. And then if it starts to go south, somebody chime in and let me know if it starts to cut out just because our bandwidth. I don't know what's happening today, but so yeah, a little bit of history on our residency. I came here in 2016 in hopes to stay involved with the residency. I did my residency at Ohio State, like I said, went to University of Wisconsin right as they were getting ready to start one. So I helped them launch that one, UW Sports Med. Kind of got hooked in being a faculty member, just the standards that were set forth in my residency at Ohio State. You know, becoming a lifelong learner, just staying involved, you just really have to keep finding ways to surround yourself with people that want to do the same thing. So when I came here, I had the hopes of doing the same thing. And I reached out to Dr. Ackerman, who's our medical director. He's also the head physician for Oregon State. as well as the associate athletic director at Oregon State. So he wears a lot of hats. And he was paramount in our success in rolling out the residency because he's in charge of all realms there. So once he's on board, then we started the recruiting process, not only for residents, but for faculty, and have since grown to have 6 faculty in multiple classes in the residency. So that's kind of the history of it. And we started the first year just with Oregon State football and a little bit of wrestling, and since have grown to include Lynn Benton Community College, their athletics programs, as well as the local high schools in Albany, as well as Corvallis. So that's a unique thing about our residency is residents are involved with Division I program, community college athletics, as well as high school athletics. And that's really important to delineate that from how that's managed in a sports medicine setting, because you're going to handle somebody different on the court with like a D3 or community college injury versus somebody who's on national football, or not national football, but on TV, right? And how a resident's going to manage that injury and who's going to manage the injury and how's that communicated to the coaches and things like that. So we're finding that valuable to have that diversity of athletic care. So that's kind of the history on where we came from and why. Yeah, and then really just looking to the future, we're hoping this next class is going to help us develop, our residency a little bit further. And, hopefully some of you guys are going to be involved in that. That's kind of a little bit of the history. Did I miss anything? Any of the faculty?
No, I think it was great,
Okay.
and kind of a
That's
nice
really all I
transition
had from
into
the
program
history
overview.
of the program. I mean, the 2 big take homes are just pushing the profession forward and becoming a lifelong learner, hoping that the next class is looking for that same thing.
Right. Thank you, Travis. I'm going to share my screen again here, and we're just going to get into just a brief overview of our program here, and then open up for questions. So again, this is us. Thanks again for joining virtually today. So we'll kind of right into it. This first slide I always just throw in anytime we're chatting about our residency program. This is something we developed at our faculty retreat this past year, and something I like to simply because all of the components are things that we really do strive to thread into all of the logistical mandatory components of a sports program. So this big idea of world class, a big growth mindset, community inclusive, humility, and collaborative. Those are things we hope that in this virtual open house today you get glimpses of. And if you have a chance to come for an interview and spend some time with us in our program, it's something that we really do believe that we do really well. So just wanted to lead with this, not to go through it bullet point by bullet point, but just to kind of give a nod to some of the foundational pieces that we build everything else off of. Great, probably why a lot of you guys are here today. Just a little bit of our program and what it looks like and kind of some of our expectations. So right off the bat, the goal of any sports residency program is to very, very broadly prepare you to sit for an SCS exam and become specialized in the sports medicine components of physical therapy. We think we do that really well. So far, we have a 100% pass rate of the SCS exam, and we do that in a couple of different ways. These are some of the big buckets that some of that didactic content comes from. Weekly journal clubs and weekly residency conferences. The journal clubs are much more kind of current hot topics in the world of sports medicine, sports rehabilitation, and then the weekly residency conferences is really where you get the bulk of your SCS prep content. As a resident, you're expected to participate in all of those, either as a presenter or an attendee, and faculty presents at those as well. We get a good bit of collaboration, as you heard in our kind of tour video, from our sports medicine physicians and some of our surgeons that we work with here. So that's a really nice place to get a lot of that content. We also do monthly acute sports injury case reviews, which Jenny heads with one of the athletic trainers we have on staff at Samaritan. We do monthly manual therapy reviews, and then we also do a monthly exercise progressions lab. So all of those just getting more of the sports med, acute injury management, intervention components of being a sports medicine provider. So that's where most of that content comes from. From a mentoring standpoint, this is something we really pride ourselves on in this program. Everybody loves these pictures. But essentially, we structure it, it's one-on-one mentorship sessions, and you rotate through all of our faculty. So you get to work with each of us in some capacity, and we structure it so we alternate quarterly. So you'll be primary mentors with 3 of us in quarters 1 and 3, and then we'll swap and you'll get the other 3 in quarters 2 and 4. And we have isolated and intentional time built into your schedule and into our schedules as faculty to debrief and give feedback even after that patient care session. So we really do strive to make that intentional because truthfully, as a resident, that's a big component of what most folks are trying to get out of a residency program, is a little bit more isolated, hands-on attention with some of the more sports medicine specific components of treatment. So that's something we're really proud of in the structure of our program here. Sports coverage, as Travis alluded to, has really developed over our classes each year, and at the Division I level specifically, you have isolated and intentional time with football, wrestling, rowing, and women's soccer. At the community college level, you get more of the winter sports exposure, so more of your basketballs and volleyballs. And then high school, you get both football and then spring sports. And I put spring sports on there because the past 2 years with COVID, sports kind of happened at different times in the year. So you do get exposure to high school football, and then whatever sports are practicing in the spring right now is something you get exposure to as well. And so I think it'd be hard pressed to find a large number of residency programs that give you exposure to athletics across the spectrum. And you really do get to get your hands dirty at all of these levels. Your role at each of these levels is different. Obviously, in the Division I setting, there are team athletic trainers and student athletic trainers, as we mentioned, and so your role maybe looks a little bit different than it would out at the high school or out at Lynn Benton Community College, where there's one athletic trainer in you. But you do get exposure in all of those realms, and again, that's something that we like to boast and as a component of our program that we're really. A couple other nods that I just want to make. So we do have a research component of our residency program. You can make it as involved or uninvolved as you want, but the research project specifically, really the purpose is to facilitate your skills in the research process. So critical inquiry, involvement in post-professional residency education, you need to be familiar and competent in this process. And so you can essentially establish a unique project. You can join an ongoing project, whether that's with our physician staff or with faculty here. You are expected to present a poster in some capacity at our in-house research symposium that happens annually. And then you're also expected to submit a proposal to present at least 2 professional conferences in the broader sports medicine or PT realm. And then you're also expected to complete a case study while you're here. This, again, purpose is just to demonstrate a little bit more advanced sport specialist expertise in treatment of a sports or athletic related injury. So you kind of take it from initial eval to return to sport, and the expectation there is that you write it up and then present it at a minimum out to our faculty here. If it's something you feel particularly passionate about, we will certainly support you in presenting elsewhere, but at a minimum, it's something that you present out to the faculty here. This year, we do have a teaching experience and opportunity. We have a new collaboration with Western University's UT program. Dr. Christina Gomez is on faculty there as well. And really the purpose here is to give back to the profession, kind of turn around and reach a hand out. The course that you're involved with at this point, and this will be coming up for our current residents in the spring, is a MSK course. And you'll generally be involved with the lab teaching component, so helping with manual skills, assessment, intervention, etc., and have an opportunity to lead DPT students through some of those labs. And then leadership opportunities we put on here because we do have a couple in-house leadership opportunities through Samaritan itself, because truthfully, we want residents to come out of this program and go on and do big things. So we like to involve you in those programs because they exist here and they are pretty solid courses. So we allow and give you guys exposure to that as well. Program stats, just because these are kind of fun to see. Vienna is our big numbers guy, so I'll give him a shout out. I am not adequate in putting these things together, so he made this look really nice. And the numbers here, not to be confused, these are like residency graduation years, so we know that 2022 has not happened yet, but just to kind of give a big picture of what things look like. So you've got the requirements for any sports residency program across the top there, average in our program, and then just kind of what it's looked like as years have progressed. I think the biggest gain or change we've seen is in coverage hours, and I think that we've just seen based on we now have more opportunities for coverage kind of across that spectrum like we mentioned. But this is always just kind of nice to see for those of you that are numbers people and kind of what this looks like weekly and then generally. And if you have specific questions about this, we're certainly happy to dive into those. But really, we're here to answer any questions that you have about our program. So let me sneak out of this, and I'd like to start by just facilitating. I know we had folks kind of email in or message in questions that they definitely wanted us to answer. So we'll start and kind of go a little round robin and answer those, and then we'll certainly open it up to folks at that point. So I will take the first question and I'll read it, and then we'll kind of popcorn around. So the first question that someone wanted us to chat about is, what type of research projects do residents typically conduct? And it's gone across the spectrum, and the two current residents are in the midst of their research, and so I'll actually give you the titles of their projects. So Shannon is working on research projects, titled Differences in Within Session Quadriceps Strength with and Without Virtual Reality in Patients Following ACLR. And then Quinn is working on a project that he's titled Awareness of the Availability of Evaluation Appointments for Pediatric Patients Immediately Following Acute Sports Injury. So he's doing a little bit more of a survey-based assessment there. And then our most recent residency graduates did, Heather did a kind of retest reliability study on the upper extremity Y-balance test in competitive gymnasts. And then Zach did a interrelated reliability assessment of comparing 2D motion analysis to human eye analysis in squat and single leg squat, a kind of biomechanical assessment. So those are some of the most recent projects. The nice thing is, if you are interested in doing a kind of unique question, start to finish, that is IRB. Because we're not a huge academic institution, there's not a million other projects going on. So we do have pretty efficient access to folks that can help with that process. And Dr. Christina Gomez can certainly answer some of those questions a little bit better. I know she had to shut off here today, but we can put you in touch with her if you have more specific questions there. So I'll now kick it over to Jenny. The next question that we had is, how do PTs collaborate with strength and conditioning or sports science disciplines?
Awesome, thank you. So within our clinic, we work closely with Kyle Bagan, our sports performance supervisor of Sam Elite, and that is our faculty or facilities community-based gym. He hosts several youth camps and does a lot of programming for a local high school. And then as our community patients approach the end of their PT journey and are ready to transition to something more gym-based, we refer patients to him and his team quite often. And then that relationship goes vice versa also, where he has some of his clients who are struggling with injury that he will send up to us, to our PT department. VN works really closely with our Oregon State collaboration regarding sports performance and the sports science. So I'm going to pass this along to him to talk on that front.
Thanks, Jenny. So I can talk on sports science side with our performance coach, primarily with soccer. The coach's name is Erica Troutman. So we don't really have a specific sports scientist, so we kind of delegate it. She kind of handles all the tech, and then I kind of analyze the data. Right now, it's the first year where PTs have kind of been involved in that, so it's just data collection right now. Residents will be very, very busy, but if you did make some kind of time out of your free time, I'm happy to go over that. Dr. Phillips is also interested in looking at the data. Christina is going to help analyze the data as well, but it's very, I guess, elementary right now, but we have a lot of data out there, and then we're going to find ways to analyze it and start initiatives based on that data. But right now, pretty much we have full, I guess, control of it, just because there's not something put in place yet.
Great, thank you guys. The next question that I'm gonna punt over to Sean is, what are some things that you did as a sports resident that you think made you successful and excelling in your role?
Yeah, good question. I wasn't sure if this meant my role as a resident or my role as a sports therapist, so I answered it as both. So I think as a resident, I would say coming into the residency with an open mind and a willingness to learn. With that comes this quality of being vulnerable. Like one of our goals is to create a well-rounded clinician with sound clinical reasoning skills, and it's hard to do that if you aren't willing to share or ask questions. And so I'd say one of the aspects that made me successful was doing that, was asking questions, sharing my thoughts, and being that vulnerable to accept feedback. Another aspect I would say is taking advantage of any opportunity that was given to you. So entering my residency, I felt my weakest aspects were acute management and sideline coverage. So any chance I had an opportunity to be on a sideline of a Florida game or a high school game, I took that opportunity. So sometimes that creates some very long days and some long weekends, but I felt like taking advantage of those allowed me to be successful in that realm. In my role as a sports physical therapist now, I would say the skills that you learned in residency involving networking, communication, and functioning as a healthcare team are vital now. So carrying forward those skills allow me to be successful both with our high school athletes as well as athletes at OSU to ensure that, one, they're safe, and that everybody is involved that needs to be involved, because we really do function as a team.
Thanks, Sean. Those are great. And I knew you would answer both, and I'm glad that you did. This next question, I'll kick back to Jenny. And this is simply because we hired you and you were a resident in our program. And the question is, what are the qualities you believe you demonstrated that made you a strong candidate and a good fit for this program?
Yes, thank you. So this one is always a tough one. So the athletic world is always changing. So something that we kind of need as a sports therapist in general, but especially as a resident, is to be flexible and be able to kind of adapt quickly. Your schedule changes constantly. Like this week for our residents, there was a practice canceled on Tuesday, and now they're actually practicing on Tuesday. So knowing that, you just always have to be kind of ready and on the fly, and understanding that that's just kind of how it goes. Things change pretty often. But then also being able to demonstrate and communicate a willingness to learn. As a resident, you're exposed to so many different methodologies of treatment and coordination of care by working with all the multidisciplinary staff that we work with. And so being able to be open to learning is very crucial, and communicate your needs and understandings as well is going to be helpful in making you successful.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Thank you. 2 more questions that came through, and then we'll open it to you guys. So this next one I'll have Travis answer. Travis, the question was, what are the opportunities you can pursue upon completion of your sports physical therapy residency program?
Yeah, good question. So there's several avenues somebody could take. They could, one avenue the individual could take is they could move to a smaller community or a large community and be more involved in like the high school population and really serve as a sports medicine guru for their community per se, working with other physicians in the area. They could move on to something similar to this setting in like a D1 college or any level of college and be involved at that level and be a part of a larger team with athletic trainers, dietitians, strength and conditioning staff, sports medicine surgeons and orthopedics, as well as primary care physicians. They can move on to professional sports. That's a lot more specialized, smaller teams. You know, that you can even get in somewhat of the performance side of things. There's really a lot of different avenues. You can move into teaching, kind of like us faculty are doing, where we're involved in a D1 setting, but we're also involved in teaching in a residency. So I think academia is really a way that you can affect a lot of people, not just your own profession. So I think there's a lot of different avenues. It just depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, I think those are the kind of the big hitters. There's obviously little niches that you can do outside of those, but those are kind of the big hitters in my mind that somebody can do. You can even pursue like other fellowships after the residency that are more specialized, kind of like Vienne and Christina did. If you wanted to get more mentoring and more specialized training, that's out there as well before you were going to go off on your own. Yeah.
Great. That was very thorough. Last question here, and then we'll open it up if anyone has questions that we haven't touched on. And I'll hand this one back over to Sean. And I like this question because I do know that there's a good handful of first and second year students on here today, which we love to see. But the question is, what experiences, should first and second year students be seeking to make them more appealing when applying to a sports residency program?
Yeah, another really good question to set yourself up for success now. What can you do? I thought on this, and I thought of maybe 2 things that I think would make a more appealing candidate. So one would be not only being like successful academically, but just showing engagement within the sports PT world. And so that could range from taking sports continuing education courses to being involved with sports research at your institution, attending conferences, just being engaged within sports rehab. And then second, I think demonstrating a quality to better yourself. And so the example that I came up with, let's say your interest is in research or your interest is in acute management and sideline coverage. What have you done to better yourself, to get more involved with that? So that might mean maybe shadowing or observing or working in your school's athletic training department or a high school, just again, being engaged within the sports medicine world.
Great. All right. Well, those were the questions that we had been given prior to that people definitely wanted us to answer. So wanted to make sure we hit those. We still have about 15 minutes. We can open it up. You guys can type things in the chat if you don't want to speak and raise your hand. You can kind of jump in and ask questions. We will open it up to you all. Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Ifaz. I'm a 3rd year student at USC. And my question is kind of regarding something that was said earlier, where you said you wanted the residents to kind of give back to the program and help it grow. So on that token, what is your like future vision for the program, and how can the residents contribute to that growth?
I'm going to punt that one to Travis, and then we can probably all fill in the blanks here.
Can you repeat the question, because it cut out right when I think I caught the gist, but I want to hear you repeat it if you don't mind.
Sure. So I was just kind of asking about what you saw the vision of the program growing towards and how the residents can contribute to that growth.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think about that question basically every single day, and I honestly pose it to the rest of the faculty a lot of days at Huddle and ask, what else can we do to be world class? And I think An example of that is I was talking to our current resident today and asking him what we could do to improve the residency. So what I envision is just continually to improve. If we get a bigger facility, I'd like to see us grow, but we kind of maximize this facility. But I think the short answer to your question is achieving world-class care with our patients, and also pumping out research to match that. I think that's really what we need to do, is produce more research and be supported from our organization and our profession for that. But I think every little step that we do along the way is going to take the residents, one, calling us on our shortcomings, but also doing their side of the work to make sure we achieve those goals.
I could also give some input on just building relationships. So every day we try to build further relationships with other disciplines. One big thing, each year it gets better and better. For example, for football, none of our residents really traveled. Maybe they traveled to one game last year, and this year the residents have done a great job. They're one of the first people our staff, the AT staff over there, calls over for help. And also I feel like they've traveled every single game, or away game at least, or covered every single football game this season. So their hard work is kind of building our reputation with everyone else.
Anyone else have anything to add there? I think those are both great points.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. I was involved, much like you, Kit, from the beginning with Jenny as our first resident, and it's grown significantly and progressed since then. And like Travis said, we're always trying to be world class, and so I think publishing research or having an active social media account that VN has helped us with, just getting our name out there and representing us well is how I envision this growing and how the resident can help.
I'm going to add one more comment to that as I reflect back on the question. One, I think that was a really good question. Two, I think changing our community, you know what I mean? I mean, if the crux of the goal is improving care, it's really trying to change our community. And we got our fingers reached out at every level of athletics in our community. And I think if we're affecting our community, then we've achieved our goal. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, guys.
Great. I think I saw a question in the chat, so let me just pop over there really quick. So the first question was, how many residents do we accept every year? Right now, a maximum of 2. We don't have to take 2, but we'll take a maximum of 2. And then the second question was about what are key application characteristics you're looking for. I think we alluded a little bit to that in some of the questions that Sean was able to answer for us, and a little bit of what Jenny nodded to with kind of characteristics that she demonstrated and displayed and made her successful in our program. But I think big picture things are, again, involvement in the sports medicine community, passion and interest in something of that realm. It can be research, it can be acute injury management, it can be coaching, it can be physician observation, it can be surgery observation, and you can do that at the level of your DPT program, you can do that in your extracurriculars. I do think something I always like to mention is relationships and how important those relationships are. I think something, maybe this is a personal bias of mine, but I'll give you a little insight, like a good letter of recommendation goes a long way. That gives us a little bit of insight into how you interact with people, the type of student you might have been if it's coming from a professor, the type of colleague you might be if it's coming from a clinical instructor, the type of team player you might be if it's coming from a coach or someone you know in that capacity. But I think being intentional about building relationships that are important to you kind of speaks pretty loudly on an application if we can tell that they know you and appreciate the things that you've done. So I think those would be big things that I've looked for, in addition to what Sean and Jenny have also shared. I don't know if anyone else on faculty has anything else that they definitely want to point out from a application characteristic standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know if it's more on the application, but definitely in the interview, I think Samaritan has its own set of core values and someone we're looking for, and just a person in general. in addition to being a good therapist.
All right. Any other questions? Again, chat is an available avenue. You guys can raise hands or just chime in.
Looks like there was another question in chat, Caitlin, about working with adaptive athletics.
Oh, see, this is where I can't read, Sean, you know. There it is. Okay. So the question is, does the program currently have any relationship with adaptive athletics? The short answer to the question is not specifically. We did have a really unique opportunity in our COVID year. There was a couple opportunities for virtual event coverage. It's a little bit like injury spotting, and our residents were able to cover an adaptive athletic event that way. So it's not something that's in our curriculum. We definitely touch on it from a SES prep standpoint through kind of journal clubs and things that way, just so you're familiar with those types of considerations. But we do not have a firmly established relationship with any adaptive athletic programs. If that's something you're interested in, we do have large networks with the faculty that we have, so it's certainly something we can help you reach out and network about. But as I long-windedly answer your question, the short answer is no. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add. All right, we'll probably take the next like 5 or so minutes if there's still questions. Vienne, I guess I have a question for you while folks are thinking if they have questions. Do we have a way to disseminate faculty contact information kind of as a follow-up if folks do have questions, or have we done that already?
We have not. Whoever signed up for both recording or live session, they're going to get the same email with recording in it, and I can put everyone's info there. Okay, great. So if you guys leave this and you're shoot, really meant to ask, please don't hesitate. We want to get as much information to you as possible about our program because truthfully, you're searching and interviewing us eventually as much as we are you. And there's a lot of really good variety in sports residency programs at this point. I think it's something that I would speak for all faculty when I say it's been really exciting to see the growth in sports residency programs. And so make sure you really sit down and kind of think of future goals and professional goals and what you want to get out of a program, because I bet you can find it. And so hopefully we've given you information to kind of make that decision about our program today. Another question in the chat that I'm going to read aloud for people. For the research track, what do you believe has drawn past residents away from taking full advantage of that opportunity? I mean, I'll answer, and then I think other folks can chime in. I think one, just a lack of interest in research. Some folks really want to understand research, want to be able to interpret research, but really have no interest in doing research either clinically or otherwise. And then I think two, to be blunt, is time. You guys are busy as residents, and I think if you're not really excited about like doing a full IRB research unique question type project, I think time could certainly be a barrier for that as well. Any other insight there from faculty? I'm getting a lot of head nods. Yeah. So probably time, and then honestly just a lack of interest in really deep diving into research, and that's okay. That's why we kind of have the spectrum of involvement. We want you to know how to do it. We want you to know how to interpret it. We want you to participate in some capacity, but you do not have to come out of here being a clinical researcher unless you want to be.
I have a question. You talked about collaboration with other providers or other disciplines. Does that take place mainly at the journal clubs or just throughout interacting with I guess, those other members, or is there specific opportunities for collaboration?
It's a great question. I'm going to punt to Vienne first on that one, and then I think a couple of us will have some insight. But Vienne, you want to start with that one?
Sorry, could you repeat that question real quick?
Yeah, no problem. Just about opportunities for collaboration with other disciplines or other healthcare providers, like the physicians. Is it mainly during those journal club meetings, or just throughout, kind of discussing patients or other information?
Yeah, it's built in. Travis and Caitlin kind of designed a lot of shadowing hours for you with physicians. So that's time where you get to ask good questions and kind of just observe the way they want to do things, learn a lot from them. As far as athletic trainers, both in the high school and college level, you're going to spend a lot of time with them, as you saw the hours. So you get to know them, and it could either be small talk, or they can talk to you about work and projects they want to get going. And it's really up to you to see what kind of relationships you want to build. Again, you're going to be pressed for time. That's probably the most consistent answer we've given you for everything. But if something really matters to you, then you can certainly take the time and kind of go out of your way to complete that, as long as we feel you're doing a good job with the core curriculum of the residency. So you're going to be exposed to plenty of different disciplines as a built-in part of your residency. I think that's a big part of a lot of residencies. It's just what you kind of want to make out of that one.
Yeah, I would. Go ahead, Jenny. No, go ahead, Jenny. So Jenny could probably speak better than just actually going through it, but as Vienne said, we have built-in time within your schedules to spend time with some physicians downstairs. And then Samaritan has recently hired a fantastic surgeon in Dr. Chris McCrum, and we've had opportunity to observe surgery through him, which is new this year. And he is very excited about our residency program, and I anticipate he's going to be much more involved in the future. So we have great opportunities to work with a fantastic surgeon.
Also, one of the unique things about our clinic being our physicians are right downstairs. There have been many times where I've had, seems more common with the wrestlers that I see, but something else other than what they came in for pops up. And so I just run right downstairs and talk to
Did she just freeze for everybody else, or is that just me?
them. And I
That's for all of us.
But
Jenny, I'm sure it was a great answer, but to summarize, the short answer is no. It's not just with the journal clubs and residency conferences, although that's a really nice place where you don't have a patient in front of you and you guys can kind of think tank and bounce ideas around with less of a time constraint. But there's a ton of interaction day to day in all of the places that everyone just mentioned. That was actually an awesome question to end on, because it kind of speaks to what we like to do here and the ways that we really try and collaborate and work with everybody on our sports medicine team. So to be respectful of your time, we're going to get you out of here on time. And again, Vienne will send a follow-up email. And again, a huge nod to Vienne, the most tech-savvy man I've ever met, for coordinating all of this. And thank you guys for all attending. It was nice to virtually see and kind of chat with all of you guys, and hope this gives you some insight if you're applying this cycle or thinking to apply or just looking to gain more information about our program. We're glad you stopped by this afternoon. And I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to end this call for everybody. Have a nice rest of your evening, guys.